Okay, you always wanted to improve your chess, but now you can do it in 7 days. Let me tell you, even 6 days, because we can skip day 1, where it tells you that learning the endgame is important, because you don't want to hear that. Instead, we go to day 2, which is about opening preparation, right? So here it says that you need to develop your pieces. You need to understand the opening, and of course you need to improve your pieces. But how do you choose an opening? That's a kind of important question, right? When selecting openings for your repertoire, you should ask yourself if they suit your own style of play. This may sound obvious, but far too often casual players pick up openings by chance rather than consider choice. Honestly, is not so true. For example, if you're just a beginner, you should try gambits, because gambits will help you understand that material in the beginning is not so much important. Instead, what's important is to develop the pieces, have the initiative, and attack. Okay? In any case, here there is the positional players are usually conservatives by nature and happy to improve their position little by little and patiently wait for tangible gains. Their overall plan may not be apparent for quite some time, but measured and refined preparation will eventually lead to control of the board and decisive final attack. Masters of this art are former world champion Anatoly Karpov and English Grandmaster Michael Adams. So here we have a game, Adams Spraget, played in Hastings in 1989-1990. The game, Adams is white, starts with e4. Spraget plays c6, d4, d5. This move constitutes the Caro-Kann defense, which is also a great favorite of Karpov. The advance of a d-pawn challenges the center and clears the way for the development of the black light squares bishop. So this is the difference between the Caro-Kann and the French, right? With the French you cannot develop this, and this has become the bad bishop in the French. In the Caro-Kann this is a kind of good bishop. Okay, so white continue with knight d2, and again I think it's kind of important that you understand the meaning behind the moves. If white plays here, it's because he wants to play this or this move, right? Because if he played it here, this cannot move at all. So in reality, when the opponent plays a move, it's kind of telling you something, and you need to pay attention to what's telling you. D takes e4, knight takes e4, and knight f6. Black wants to exchange white's only active piece and have a quiet life. It might seem strange to voluntarily allow the doubling of his pawns, but at such an early stage this is not critical. However, in a positional sense, the pawns may later prove to be a weakness, provided white can find a way to exploit them. So white plays knight takes f6, and here black didn't play this, but he played this. And you say, wow, this is a kind of bad, right? Because you say double pawn, isolated pawn, but the advantage here is the file, the G file, which is directly going over the enemy king side, and maybe where the enemy will castle. So that's the idea here of g takes f6, right? White continue with c3. White reinforces the d4 pawn rather than playing the obvious knight f3. Why? Because it could be pinned. Instead, with c3, is waiting a minute and see what black does here. How does black continue? Why? Because if now black play this and you play knight f3, would you really want to spend another tempo to put it there? So that's the idea. Yeah, and in fact he played bishop f5. Yeah, and then white played knight f3. Yeah, it makes sense. Now that the bishop has been developed to the f5 square, whites decide to bring out the knight. The same thing I just told you is here in the note, because this move now it's a loss of a tempo, right? You know, some things at a certain level, you know them immediately, and so that's why I am able to tell them to you also if I'm not a grandmaster. e6, g3, a kingside fianchetto. The bishop is to be developed on g2, where it will be provide extra cover for the white king after castling. Moreover, this bishop will find new life on the h1, e8 diagonal. Okay? Knight d7, bishop g2, and here strangely plays bishop g7. Here it says black develops his bishop in like fashion, but its loss of influence on the queen side will encourage white to launch an offensive there. Yeah, honestly, I don't understand this move. I thought this would make more sense. Not because this is good, because obviously it's not so good, but at least controls a little more. Instead here, I don't know what he's doing, but as you can see, it will be interesting to see what black does, because in this way it tells you something, right? Okay, the continuation is castle and castle, so very, very interesting. Knight h4, bishop g6, and here there is a diagram, which means you should pause a second the video and try to think out how would you continue if you were white. Notice is nothing crazy like crazy tactic and so on, but it will tell you a lot if you stop for a couple of minutes the video, try to find out what would you play if you were white, because then you will compare with Adams, that is a 2700 player, okay? Okay, Adams continue with a4. Very interesting, right? Here it says the positional player at work. White wants to gain ground on the queen side by a4, a5, thereby also depriving black of a b6 square for his knight. A further advance of this pawn to a6 will also undermine the c6 pawn. And now I hope you can understand what the problem is if he arrives here, but this is controlling this diagonal, right? So you make it weaker, this fall down, right? It's a very good move. Again, it's nothing tactically, it's not anything flashy, but it's a very important move to know. Okay, so how does black continue? In these cases, I tell you the best thing you can do is to block immediately your opponent there. Boom! a5 is the move. Bishop f4 and knight b6. If black activates his queen, like with this move, because he attacks the pawn b2, it's not a good idea. Do you know why? Because white will play queen c1 defending the pawn b2, and then he will probably play bishop e3, and of course he tries to make a discovery attack, right, with d5. Again, tack, tack, and then bishop e3 with the idea d5. So that's why probably it's better to not maybe play knight b6, but clearly not queen b6. And what should white do now? Try to think about it for a second, because what you want to do now is to prevent this knight from jumping here, because here will control a lot of squares, right? So what is the move you play? It's queen b3, because if you move the knight, the pawn b7 will fall. Okay, so black continue with bishop d3, and here it says black jumps at the chance to utilize his bishop to remove white's annoying queen from the b file, because obviously the idea is bishop c4, right? But after the game, Sprague preferred the odd-looking move rook a6. So instead of bishop d3, he said this was better, with the ingenious idea of playing, okay, so the idea of this is this, and if you take, he will play rook b6, attacking and going there. So that's why he thinks rook a6 is better than bishop d3 that was played in the game. White continued with rook f d1, and now black makes a mistake, but it's not explained why it's a mistake. Bishop c4, queen c2, knight d5, and now there is b3. At this point, black plays knight takes f4, but you know what? Black doesn't, white doesn't go for g takes f4, it takes this, which make more sense, because obviously you don't want to leave your opponent with a bishop pair, right? And here knight takes g2 is the next move, knight takes g2 again, and here there is a kind of diagram, and it says the mini combination is over, and a superficial glance suggests that the position offers no obvious attacking chances. However, a strong positional player like Adams knows that it is only white who is able to increase the pressure here. This can be achieved by trebling the heavy pieces on the b file and returning the knight to the fray by knight e3 or knight f4, where it will not only have opportunities for action on the black's light squares, but it will also support the pawn advance d4, d5. So if you play knight e3 or knight, the idea is to play that. Okay. So how did black continue. Black played queen c7, rook a b1, b6, and now there is d5. This pawn thrust is designed to weaken and expose black's damaged pawn structure in the knowledge that the knight on g2 is ready to leap into action. So c takes d5, c takes d5, rook a c8, and obviously if he would have taken, the other would have played this, and it was enough to retake it, okay, so no big deal. Okay, so let's go on. Now after rook a c8 there is d takes e6, f takes e6, and knight f4. From this fine outpost the knight can exert pressure on black's weakened pawns. Okay, so how should black continue here? Black played rook f e8. Now try to pause the video and see what would you play if you were white. Okay, what would you play if you were white? White played queen b3. White's position has become stronger move by move. The double attack on the b7 and e6 pawn. Okay, so it's not b7, it's b6. So there is a mistake in the book, sorry. b6 and e6, this is the double attack, okay? So let's correct this, b6, not b7. Okay, so black continue with bishop h6. And here there are two possible alternatives. One would have been queen takes e3, but it would have given white some good chances, and or queen f7. But once again, in the end of the line given by the author, white has better placement, piece placement. So after bishop h6, white played knight takes e6, queen takes e3, queen takes e3, rook takes e3, rook takes b6, and rook c4. So black, he says, foresaw this position where he is materially level. However, he forgot that white also has a number of attacking opportunities, and this soon became evident. So the move by white is rook d7, and let's see. Okay, I was watching the board because black played rook c1 check, and I couldn't understand why not play this. Rook takes a4. Okay, well, the reason is the following. So why black cannot take on a4? Here we go. Knight c7 attacking here, and here you could play for example rook f8 or rook e1 check. Let's say rook f8, okay, just to see. King g2, wait, sorry, one thing. So in case of rook e1, king g2, bishop g7, rook b8, rook f8, knight d5, rook e6, because if he takes this he can give checkmate there, and rook d8, leading to an easy victory. Okay, so this would be an easy victory in case black gives check on e1. Now let's see the variation that the author gave in case black doesn't go on e1 but play rook f8. Okay, so this was the position, and black played rook takes a4 instead of the one played in the game. What happens? Again, knight c7, rook f8, and then there is knight d5, still attacking there. Oops, sorry, the bishop was on h6, bishop g7, knight e7, king h8, knight f5, rook g8, rook b7, and here there is rook g4 to support this, and knight h6 winning, right? Because if he takes here, there is checkmate here. If he doesn't take, there is a problem here, right? So I don't know what you can do. And if you take it off like this, let's say, well, obviously this is gone, so you cannot take it off, but it's a lot of problems. Okay, so let's return to the position that it was. Okay, it would be easier if they put a diagram when they have to obviously put some variations, because that would help to put the position back. So white played rook d7, rook c1, king g2, rook c2, king f3. Obviously, remember, there is this and then it takes, so that's why he plays king f3. Here he plays rook a2, knight c7, rook e2, obviously want to attack there, but rook b8, bishop f8, king g4, and now there is rook takes f2. Adams play obviously a safe move, which is h4, and after rook takes h4 there is king h3, rook a2, because he's trying to give a checkmate there, but it's too late, honestly. He's not able to do that, because knight e6 ends up the game, right? The problem could be check, tack, checkmate. So as you can see, this was an example from chapter 2 of this book, Improve Your Chess in 7 Days. Honestly, it's not chapter 2, it's day 2. And now we are going to see another game from day 2, to improve our opening understanding. Now the problem is the following, with all due respect for everybody. The guy is showing Adams at 2700. In the next game there is Carlsen, the best player of all time at the moment. So I'm sorry, but why they don't show some games between common average club players? Because honestly, I never played in my life with a 2700 rated chess player, and I don't know when it will ever happen. So, that's the part I don't understand, right? Because those players, they are professional. Obviously, they know their personality and their openings and so on. But in reality, today, thanks to the computers, and I have read it also for Carlsen. For Carlsen, he said that if he plays an opening twice, that's his repertoire, in his repertoire. So I think today, due to this whirlwind of tournaments, that can be classical tournaments, rapid tournaments, then there is the Tuesday, the Blitz Tuesday, every single Tuesday. I believe chess players are of a top level, professional chess player, have a huge opening repertoire because they need to trick the opponents in not knowing which kind of move they will use. Maybe 50 years ago, in 1972, it was different. But today I see the most top players, they play everything and beyond, right? So let me know if you like this idea of this book, that practically is trying to tell you that you don't have the time to study chess, but it gives you some tips that will help you to improve. Thank you very much for watching. Let's see you in the next game.